welcome. Shout out to Cynthia. Shout out to Sadie. Shout out to, leave your name in the chat so I can shout you out. You're welcome. Shout out to Hadley. Shout out to Brooke. Shout out to Mia. Also leave a like if you enjoy the live streams and the shout outs. I would truly appreciate it. Hi Elizabeth. Shout out to Elizabeth. Shout out to Valerie. Shout out to Rowan. Shout out to Heather. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Brielle. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Bree. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Ricky. Shout out to Bryson. Shout out to Rosalie. Shout out to Maya. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Brian. Shout out to Andy. Shout out to Aria. Shout out to Sephora. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Harnest. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Andrea. Shout out to Demi. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Lillian. Shout out to Joey. Shout out to Sadish. Shout out to Priscilla. Shout out to Frankie. Shout out to Joshua. Shout out to Amaret. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Skylar. Shout out to Charlie. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Macy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Melissa. Shout out to Iris. Shout out to Cedar. Shout out to Amelia. Shout out to Antoine. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Melody. Shout out to Ella May. Shout out to Icon. Shout out to Ava. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Please forgive me. Shout out to Bailey. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Mason. Shout out to Nathan. Shout out to Julian. Shout out to Shweta. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Give me 1 second. Shout out to Nevaeh. Shout out to Abigail. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Akriti. Shout out to Cindy. Shout out to Leo. Shout out to Marin. Or Marin, sorry. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Lisa. Shout out to Paulu. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to these people. Shout out to Marin. I got you right here. On to the next page. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Also subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. Also check out my content. I post other types of content, so I hope you can check it out as well. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Annie. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Uriana. Shout out to Phoebe. Shout out to Zane. Shout out to Genesis. Shout out to Manny. Shout out to Emilia. Shout out to Nicole. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Alize. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Carrie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Nikaj. Shout out to Jacobo. Give me like 10 seconds. I'll be right back. Shout out to Brian. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Holly. Shout out to Nelly. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Ash. Shout out to Demaya. Shout out to Bane. Shout out to Jacobo family. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Yona. Shout out to Kendall. Shout out to Jocelyn. Shout out to Indigo. Shout out to Kaya. Shout out to Jalela. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Sophia. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Evan. Shout out to Kevin. Shout out to Lainey. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Anushka. Shout out to Samantha. Shout out to Kamari. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Kingston. Shout out to Juna. Shout out to Myra. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Maya. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ziel or Zael. Sorry if I mess up your name. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Jocelyn. Shout out to Michaela. Shout out to Ava. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lee. Oh, what was it? Sorry, I messed up. Lee. Shout out to Presley. Shout out to Esmer. Shout out to Milana. Shout out to you, Ezekiel. Shout out to Miruna. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Mina. Shout out to Carla. Shout out to Jesley. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Emery. Shout out to Joanne. Shout out to Zane. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Nadia. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Vincent. Shout out to these people. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. On to the next page. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Harley. Shout out to Vita. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Olani. Shout out to Juna. Shout out to Shakayla. Shout out to Hannah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Alice. Shout out to Lorelai. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to ZL. Shout out to Amila. Shout out to Esther. Shout out to Trinity. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Alina. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Carlene. Or Carlene. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Talia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Astro. Shout out to Zoe. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my content. Shout out to, is it Maney? Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Alicia. Shout out to Ava. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jaden. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Tiffany. Shout out to Maria Elena. Shout out to Ashfur. Shout out to Donna. Shout out to Sophia. Leave a like. We're almost at 100 likes. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Kareem. Shout out to Hamizan. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Baljit. Shout out to Rory. Shout out to Briella. Shout out to Sumaya. Shout out to Annika. Shout out to Joyuri. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Karen. Shout out to Ali. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Yunchi. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Armand. Shout out to Kathy. Leave a like. We're almost at 100 likes. Shout out to Ricardo. Shout out to Hey Woon. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Renee. Wait, sorry, I don't know. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Renee Way. Shout out to Eve. Shout out to Casey. Shout out to Uruj. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Nyla. Shout out to Oliver. Shout out to Jubilee. Shout out to Evie. Shout out to Yuri. Only 10 more likes to 100 likes. Shout out to Catalina. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Harmony. Shout out to Briley. Shout out to Liliola. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Fanny. Shout out to Hashir. Only 7 likes away. Shout out to Lynn. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to these people. We're 7 likes away from 100. I hope you can like and subscribe, please. On to the next page. Shout out to Effie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ophelia. Shout out to Sarah. Shout out to Kinga. Shout out to Michelle. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Georgia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jolina. Shout out to Mary. Thank you for subscribing. Also, thank you for 100 likes. Shout out to Ariana. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Dee. Shout out to Dash. Shout out to Sophia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Afia. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Adrian. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Adrian. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Isabel. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jax. Shout out to Eileen or Aileen. Shout out to Zion. Shout out to Sage. Shout out to Nicola. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Quenga. Shout out to Oscar. Shout out to Lucy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Cassidy. Shout out to Braxton. Shout out to Ian. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Samar. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Sammy. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Mathilde. Whoops, I spelled it wrong, sorry. There we go. Shout out to Mathilde. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Persis. Shout out to Victoria. Like and subscribe if you like my live streams. Shout out to Aya. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to Lillian B. Shout out to Caroline. Shout out to Bea. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Roscoe. Shout out to Sari. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Noemi. Shout out to Cassie. Shout out to Jeremy. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Daliana. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Mariah. Sorry if I mispronounce her name. Shout out to Johan. Or is it Joanne? I'm so sorry. Shout out to Micah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Gara. Or Gara. Shout out to Ryan. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Pearl. Shout out to Aiga. Shout out to Tia. Shout out to Kay. Shout out to Jocelyn. Shout out to Marie. Shout out to Saga. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Owen. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Maybe we can get to 200 likes. Also like and subscribe if you're enjoying my shout outs. Check out my other content that I post. I hope you can subscribe and support. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Space. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Alvin. Shout out to Araya. Shout out to Kinda. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Marie. Shout out to Millie. Shout out to Huey. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Alexander. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ness. Shout out to Louie or Louise. Shout out to Nija. Shout out to Jace. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Angela. Shout out to Eleanor. Shout out to Owen. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Zuri. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Helen. Shout out to Tyree. Shout out to Lion. Shout out to Zill. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Star. Shout out to Siamara. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Hamad. Shout out to Winter. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Carrie. Shout out to Addie. Happy birthday. And thank you for subscribing. Oh, I forgot another letter. Addie. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Lori. Shout out to Kayla. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sari. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Eden. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lexi. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Star. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Clown. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Alora. Shout out to Ansley. Shout out to Charlie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Penelope. Shout out to Nor. Shout out to Hudson. Shout out to Kirancina. Shout out to Salem. Shout out to Chelsea. Shout out to Lloyd. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Archie. Shout out to Shelly. Shout out to Sky. Shout out to Lonnie. Shout out to Sutton. Shout out to Tanisha. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Shout out to Hawken. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Zero. Happy birthday. Shout out to Sair. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Zuzia. Shout out to Daliana. Shout out to Van. Shout out to Shy. Shout out to Cassandra. Shout out to these people. Leave a like. Maybe we can get to 200 likes. We're almost there. We're halfway there to 200 likes. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Connie. Shout out to Emily Rose. Shout out to Jordan. Shout out to Vanessa. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Helena. Shout out to Wolf. Shout out to Adam. Shout out to Rima. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Tony. Shout out to Delaris. Shout out to Victor. Shout out to Royal. Shout out to Blairit. Shout out to Liam. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Gianna. Shout out to Anushka. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Caitlin. Shout out to Sebastian. Shout out to Taliana. Leave a like. We're almost at 200 likes. Shout out to Juliana. Oh no, how do you spell that? I don't want to mess it up. There we go. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Jazzy. Shout out to Mary Jane. Shout out to Jordan. Shout out to Nugget. Shout out to Sheila. Or Shayla. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Aymara. Shout out to Georgia. Shout out to Tiger. Shout out to Norel. Shout out to Demi. We're almost at 200 likes. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Indy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mary Ann. Shout out to Yasmin. Shout out to Playing. Shout out to Cherry. Shout out to Logan. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Mani. Shout out to Car. Shout out to D or Dia. Shout out to Reshma. Shout out to Terea. Leave a like. We're almost at 200 likes. Shout out to Safa, sorry. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Virginia. Shout out to Mira. Shout out to Adila. Shout out to Sakura. Shout out to Aliana. Shout out to Kyle. Shout out to Ray. Is it Ram? Shout out to Zoe. We're almost at 200 likes. We're almost there. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my content and the shout outs. Shout out to Lindsay. Shout out to Misha. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Zane. Shout out to Adriana Rosas. Shout out to Tala. Shout out to Finn. Shout out to Daisy. Shout out to Bea. Shout out to Kara. Shout out to Dandy. Shout out to Phoenix. Let me do that again. Shout out to Phoenix. There we go. Shout out to these people. Leave a like. We're almost at 200 likes. We're almost there. On to the next page. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Star. Shout out to Alexa. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Bianca. Only 2 more likes to 200 likes. Shout out to Brittany. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Cynthia. Shout out to Shelly. Shout out to Poppy. Shout out to Phoenix. Shout out to Blake. Shout out to Capri. Shout out to Layla. Thank you for 200 likes. We did it. Shout out to Catalina. Shout out to Perry. Shout out to Sam. Shout out to Pebble. Shout out to Pastel. Shout out to Annette. Shout out to Ginger. Shout out to Lydia. Shout out to Honor. Shout out to Luan. Thank you, or Luan. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Kaylee. Shout out to Tarushaya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Khaleesi. Shout out to Amara. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my channel. Shout out to Dylan. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Mila. Shout out to Addie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Sigrid. Shout out to Aisha. Shout out to Denzel. Shout out to Gabs. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Penny. Shout out to Chloe. Shout out to Sprout. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to Dila. Shout out to Kira. Shout out to Bilal. Shout out to Jasmine. Shout out to Safina. Shout out to Venus. Shout out to Brittany. Shout out to Kimberly. Shout out to Sandy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Maggie. Shout out to Gigi. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Claire. Shout out to Max. Shout out to Mia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Shelby. Shout out to Nick. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to William. Shout out to Nick. Oh, I already got Nick right here. Shout out to Augustine. Shout out to Evangelina. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Astro. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Peeling. Shout out to Alexandria. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Poppy. Shout out to Eleanor. And shout out to Matilda. Thank you so much for being here. Like and subscribe. Subscribe to my channel so you know when I live stream. I will see you all in the next one. I will live stream tomorrow. Have a great day or have a great night. Take care. Please subscribe. I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. Bye. Take care. See you next time.